The radio crackled, cutting across the hum of generators and the low murmur of Marines refitting gear. A voice, urgent and ragged, filled the cramped air of the staging tent. Blackhawk down, farmland grid 7, possible survivors, enemy activity confirmed. The words silenced everything. Conversations died mid-sentence. Tools clattered to the floor. In that breath, the night changed from restless waiting to a sprint into fire. Megan stood still for only a heartbeat, letting the transmission burn into her. Then she moved. She pulled at the straps of her plate carrier until it pressed uncomfortably tight against her chest, the nylon digging into shoulders already scarred from years of weight. The familiar grind of Velcro and buckle was both ritual and armor. Her gloves, frayed along the palms, leather split in places, slid over the receiver of her M4. They weren't just gear, they were history. Torn during an ambush 2 deployments ago, cut again when she dragged a wounded Marine through broken glass in another firefight. She refused to replace them. The tears spoke louder than any metal endurance, stubborn survival, promises kept. She racked her weapon, the click loud in the quiet. Around her, Marines mirrored the motion bolts sliding forward, magazines thumping home. The routine carried a steady rhythm, an orchestra tuning before a violent performance. "Listen up," Megan said, voice low but cutting. The squad gathered tight, eyes on her, red light glinting off sweat-slick brows. Bird went down in farmland. Terrain is broken into ditches and crops. Locals run with rifles. Expect ambushes. Expect choke points. Air cover won't touch down for 15 minutes. That means we are alone until then. The weight of her words pressed on every face. Some tried to mask it with calm chewing of gum or tapping fingers against magazines. Others stared down, nodding slow, jaws tight. She gave them no comfort, only truth. Her gaze swept over them. Young faces carrying shadows older than their years, exhaustion hanging heavy, but loyalty heavier still. She felt it, that unspoken bond. They wouldn't falter, not because orders demanded it, but because the men in that downed Blackhawk were theirs. Brothers, unseen, but not abandoned. She holstered her sidearm, slid her rifle against her chest. We don't wait. No one left behind. The words, simple and absolute, steadied them more than armor. Engines roared to life outside. Megan led the way, boots grinding over dust as she climbed into the MRAP. The vehicle's steel belly shuddered as it started forward. Convoy headlights muted under blackout shields. Through the slit of armored glass, night stretched flat and endless, broken only by the faint glow on the horizon. The smoke plume, it bled upward into the sky, smeared by the wind, glowing faintly orange against the dark. It wasn't just a column of fire. It was a beacon, a dare. The enemy would see it too, drawn like moths to flame. Inside the MRAP, silence reigned but for the rattle of gear and the steady hum of tires. Red interior lights painted faces in ghostly hues. Megan watched her squad, rifles held tight across chests, eyes darting toward windows, jaws clenched in rhythm with the bumps of the road. The smell of diesel mixed with a faint hint of burning fuel carried on the breeze sneaking through vents. She leaned into the radio, headset tight. Convoy, maintain speed, eyes on sectors. Expect contact before grid 7. Her voice didn't waver, though her gut twisted with the ticking clock. No air cover for 15 minutes. 15 minutes too long. In a battlefield, 15 minutes was eternity. The farmland crept closer. First came irrigation ditches, jagged shadows under moonlight. Then the skeletal lines of crops, stalks broken and dry. The smoke grew thicker, rising taller, until it seemed to pulse like a living thing in the distance. One Marine broke the silence. Looks like a funeral pyre. Megan didn't reply. It was a funeral pyre. For the crew, if they didn't get there in time. And maybe for her own Marines if fate demanded it. She turned back toward her squad. Remember farmland's deceptive. Ditches are perfect for ambush. Fire will mask their movement. Don't chase shadows. Tight sectors. Keep spacing. Nods answered her. Quiet acknowledgement. The convoy slowed as the road narrowed, hemmed in by dry walls of crops. The smell of burning fuel grew sharper, clawing into lungs. Every man and woman shifted uneasily, rifles angling toward the black fields beyond glass. The MRAP rattled over potholes, suspension groaning under weight. Megan adjusted her helmet, goggles pushed up into the rotor wash of the night air seeping in through vents. Sweat traced down her temple, catching dust, streaking her face in grit. She wiped it away with a gloved hand, feeling the torn leather scrape her skin. Symbols, everywhere. The smoke as a summons. The convoy as lifeline and target both. The torn gloves as the truth of what it meant to lead, to carry the scars and keep moving forward. She inhaled, slow, steadying herself against the drumbeat of her own heart. Duty and sacrifice weren't future choices. They were already here, already written in the way the convoy rolled toward the fire. The cost would be paid before the first bullet flew. Static broke over the comms. Movement ahead. Possible contacts at 1 o'clock. The words sent a ripple through the convoy. Marines raised rifles, optics catching red glints. Engines throttled down, gears grinding as drivers slowed. Shadows shifted in the ditch lines, too precise to be wind. Megan leaned forward, voice tight in the radio, eyes sharp, weapons ready. Her Marines tensed, knuckles white around grips. The air grew heavy, charged. Through the slit of glass, Megan caught the flicker of muzzle flash, small, sharp, like lightning on the ground. A tracer snapped across the dark. Contact, someone shouted. The night exploded, and the convoy plunged headfirst into the firestorm waiting for them. The convoy rolled into the farmland outskirts, steel tires crunching over dirt and gravel. Ahead stretched a patchwork of irrigation ditches, dry rows of brittle crops, and mud brick compounds scattered like abandoned sentinels. Smoke rose taller now, smeared across the night sky, glowing faint orange at its base where fire licked the land. Every Marine felt it, the air sharpening, thick with the weight of what waited in the maze ahead. Megan scanned the terrain through the armored glass slit, her hand gripping the radio mic. Ditches are perfect for concealment. Eyes up. We're in their house now. Her voice carried through the convoy, steady despite the prickle of unease threading her spine. The farmland breathed silence. No dogs barked. No voices carried from compounds. The only sound was the hum of engines and the occasional rattle of gear. Then, without warning, silence shattered. An RPG screamed across the night. It slammed into the lead Humvee with a bloom of orange fire, the blast tossing dirt and shrapnel into the air. The vehicle lurched sideways, metal shrieking, flames erupting from its hood. Marines inside scrambled to escape as gunfire crackled from the ditch lines. Contact front dismount. Megan barked, throwing open the MRAP door. Boots hit the earth hard, rifles snapping to shoulders. Tracers cut across the darkness, carving neon arcs through dry stalks. The farmland erupted into a storm of chaos. Marines dove into shallow cover, bullets snapping overhead. Gunfire echoed from unseen shooters dug into irrigation ditches, muzzle flashes strobing in the dark. The fields themselves betrayed them. Dry stalks caught fire where tracers landed, flames spreading quick, turning rows into glowing walls. Smoke rolled across the ground, thick and choking. Megan hit the dirt beside a collapsed wall, her rifle already barking fire into the ditch ahead. 2 fire teams with me. Clear that trench, other element. Flank left. Keep pressure on those compounds. She didn't wait for acknowledgement. Marines rose from the earth, sprinting low under fire, boots splashing in irrigation water as they stormed the ditch. Grenades thumped, the concussions shaking the ground, followed by guttural shouts and the roar of rifles. The flames spread faster than expected. Stalks, lit like fuses, racing across the fields. Shadows writhed in the firelight, enemy fighters darting between walls of flame. In the confusion, Friend and foe blurred into moving silhouettes. Megan dropped to one knee, sight steady, squeezing bursts at muzzle flashes. Each recoil was met with grit, sweat, and the sharp sting of smoke clawing her eyes. "Push through," she yelled, voice ragged but unbreakable. "We don't stop here. Beacons ahead. Get eyes on that bird." The Marines obeyed, driven more by her certainty than the orders themselves. They surged forward, pulling wounded from ditches, firing into the smoke, never pausing. Megan was everywhere at once, dragging a Marine out of a burning stalk row, firing point blank into a shadowed figure, shouting into comms as static threatened to swallow her voice. Through the blaze, the farmland transformed into a nightmare. Flames danced in goggles, reflecting like molten glass. Smoke shifted, hiding enemies until they were suddenly at rifle length. Every ditch was a trap, every compound window a black eye watching. The battlefield itself seemed alive, conspiring, channeling them into tighter corridors of fire and shadow. Megan felt it in her bones. This wasn't chaos alone. It was arranged. The wreck was bait. Every fire, every ambush line was set to pull them deeper into the jaws. "Trap," she muttered under her breath, then louder over the squad net. "They want us funneled. Don't break. Keep momentum forward." A Marine beside her coughed hard, eyes watering from the smoke, helmet streaked with soot. "Sergeant, we're boxed in." "Then break the box." Megan snapped, hauling him by his plate carrier and shoving him toward the flank team. An explosion tore through a nearby ditch, soil raining down. The air sang with ricochets, whistling close enough to shear cloth. Megan's braid lashed as she swung her rifle, cutting down another shadow slipping between flames. Her torn gloves slicked with dirt and sweat, the leather peeling where it rubbed against the weapon's grip. Through the smoke. She caught it at last. The faint, jagged silhouette of rotor blades jutting into the sky, broken wings stabbing against the glow. The Blackhawk. Closer now. Maybe only a few hundred meters. But the sight did not calm her. It chilled her deeper. Because between them and that bird, more fire rose. Enemy reinforcements poured in. Shouts echoing across the farmland. Motorcycles buzzed along trench lines, headlights cutting through smoke. Fighters dismounting with rifles high. From the compounds, muzzle flashes strobed like signal lamps, a net drawing tight around them. "Squads, rally on me." Megan roared over the gunfire. "We've got eyes on the wreck. We push now, or we're buried here." Her Marines tightened around her, some bleeding, all coughing from smoke, but none hesitating. Flames reflected in their lenses, faces streaked with ash and sweat, loyalty etched into every line. The farmland burned behind them, a living wall of fire. Ahead, the broken wings of the helicopter clawed at the sky, and on all sides, enemy fighters closed in, faster than they had counted on. The trap was sprung, the jaws closing. Megan shouldered her rifle, eyes narrowing through smoke and fire. "Forward," she shouted, voice cutting like steel. And they surged into the inferno, toward the beacon that promised both rescue and ruin. The Marines broke through the final ditch line in a roar of fire and grit, rifles barking as they surged past the shattered mud wall that marked the enemy's last ambush. The farmland opened into a clearing, scorched earth and burning stalks framing the nightmare at its center. The Blackhawk lay gutted, its fuselage twisted and blackened, tail boom sheared away, cockpit glass fractured into glittering shards. Rotor blades jutted at grotesque angles, stabbing into the dirt like broken wings of a fallen predator. Fire hissed from ruptured fuel lines, flames licking higher with each gust of wind. The stench of burning metal and jet fuel clawed into lungs, mixing with the iron tang of blood and the acrid smoke curling low across the ground. Megan's eyes cut immediately to the wreck's shadowed heart. Movement. Shapes. Survivors. 2 pilots. One slumped against the fuselage, blood streaking his temple, the other gripping a rifle with trembling hands. Beside them, a crewman with a bandaged leg raised his weapon weakly, muzzle flashing toward enemy shapes advancing through the fire. Their bodies were broken, but their defiance was unbroken. Marines and soldiers refusing to surrender even as the wreck burned around them. Contact wreck secured. Form the line. Megan's voice cut through the chaos, steady and sharp. Her Marines fanned out, dropping into firing positions. Rifles crackled, grenades thumped, the perimeter snapping into existence with sheer discipline. Shadows rushed the field from the burning crop rows, muzzle flashes strobing like lightning. The night became a storm of noise, screams, explosions, bullets snapping through smoke. Megan didn't hesitate. She sprinted forward, crossing open ground as tracers slashed the air around her. Heat blasted her face, smoke clawed her throat. She reached the downed pilot half-conscious near the cockpit, crouched low, and seized his vest straps. The metal was molten hot beneath him, searing through her torn gloves, the leather peeling further as she hauled with all her strength. "On your feet." "You're not dying here," she shouted, dragging him free. The pilot gasped, half collapsing against her, but his eyes still burned with refusal. He clutched his sidearm, holding it outward even as she pulled him toward cover. Behind her, another explosion ripped through the tail section, sparks showering into the air. The helicopter groaned like a dying animal, each flame a reminder it could become a coffin at any second. "Perimeter holding. Push them back," Megan barked into her headset, voice drowned at times by static and the roar of fire. Her squad tightened the line. Marines braced rifles on the wreckage, pouring fire into advancing fighters. One Marine dropped to a knee beside the wounded crewman, firing bursts even as blood pooled at his boots. Another tossed a grenade into the ditch line, the blast rocking dirt into the sky. The fight was measured in seconds, each one stolen through sheer defiance. Mortars whistled overhead, slamming into the field. The blasts bracketed closer, soil erupting in violent geysers. One detonation sent a shockwave through the perimeter, rattling helmets, showering the air with shards of burning debris. Megan, her radio crackled. A Marine's voice? Panicked. Their flanking left. She spun, braid whipping smoke. Enemy fighters surged from the fire, rifles blazing. She dropped into the dirt, sighted, and fired, 1, 2, 3 down, before rising and pulling another Marine by his plate carrier into cover. Her visor was streaked with ash and soot, her gloves shredded almost to fabric, but her grip never faltered. "Hold your sectors. No one breaks air support inbound in minutes." Her voice cut steel through the maelstrom. Minutes. It might as well be years. The crew inside the wreck kept firing, hands slick with blood but rifles held steady. One pilot leaned against the fuselage, his face pale, yet his weapon barked until the bolt clicked dry. He reloaded with shaking fingers, teeth clenched against the pain of a shattered shoulder. His defiance was contagious. Every Marine saw it, and none dared falter while the wounded still fought. The firelight painted their faces orange, sweat and ash streaking skin, eyes gleaming like embers. The wreck was no longer just a ruin. It was a beacon, a rally point, and a coffin all at once, daring them to hold fast or die where they stood. Megan crouched beside the second pilot pinned in the wreckage, blood streaming from his leg. She grasped the edge of the doorframe, searing heat biting into her palm through ruined gloves. The metal groaned as she pried, smoke searing her throat. "You're coming with me," she rasped, teeth bared against the strain. With a final wrench, she dragged him free, the man screaming but alive. She stumbled back with him, fire rushing louder behind her, like a predator howling for its prey. Around her, Marines shifted positions, rifles spitting fire. The perimeter bent but did not break, though enemy fighters surged harder, closer, numbers swelling in the firelit haze. Megan fell into cover, shoving the wounded pilot toward 2 stretcher bearers. "Get him out. Now." The bearers hoisted him, sprinting low under gunfire. Their boots slipped in mud and blood, but they didn't falter. Not while Megan stood. Mortars slammed closer, one bursting barely 20 meters from the line. The blast knocked Marines to the dirt, ears ringing, smoke swallowing the perimeter whole. Megan pushed herself upright, lungs burning, blood trickling down her temple where debris had cut her. Through the haze, she could barely see her Marines. Shadows blurred. Shapes moved. Enemy or ally. Impossible to tell. Chaos clawed at the line. This was the breaking point. "Stay on me." Megan's voice roared through the confusion, defiant against the collapse. "You break. They kill us all. Hold the line." Her Marines obeyed. Rifles rose. Bursts answered muzzle flashes. Grenades exploded in arcs of fire. The line staggered, bled, but it lived. And yet, even as stretcher teams carried wounded into the smoke, the surge grew stronger. More fighters, more muzzle flashes, more shadows spilling from ditches and flame. The Blackhawk burned behind them, a winged beast consumed in its own funeral pyre. The air was ash, the earth fire, the wreckage both beacon and coffin. Megan's torn gloves slipped on her rifle as she chambered another round, hands raw, helmet visor streaked with soot. Her voice carried still, iron and fire. "Forward. They want us buried here. Then let's bury them first." The Marines roared back, defiance answering defiance, but the surge did not stop. It swelled, harder than ever, crashing against their perimeter. The line bent once more, stretcher teams stumbling under fire, enemy shadows pressing too close, too many. And in that breath, Megan knew the next seconds would decide whether they lived or whether the wreck consumed them all. The battlefield shrieked and burned, the farmland now nothing more than a smoking crucible of fire and blood. The Blackhawk lay in the center, its fuselage crackling as flames chewed through the last of its frame. One rotor blade, warped and half-standing, finally gave way with a metallic groan, collapsing into the dirt. The sound echoed like a dirge, the death cry of the machine that had carried men into hell and refused to rise again. Around it, Megan's Marines clawed survival out of chaos. Perimeter. "Lock it down." Megan's voice cut like a blade through static and thunder. She pointed with her rifle, shouting sectors as bullets snapped inches from her head. Left flank. Rotate in fresh riflemen. Grenades front. Now, the line adjusted. Not perfectly, not clean, but with grit. Marines slid into muddy irrigation ditches, water splashing as they braced rifles and fired. Others lobbed grenades over smoldering crop rows, the blasts rolling through the smoke, shattering enemy charges into screams and silence. Every inch gained cost blood. Every inch held demanded bone. Ash began to fall, drifting downward like black snow. It clung to faces, melted into sweat, smeared into wounds. Marines coughed against it, but still they fired, vision half blind in the storm. The farmland itself betrayed them. Smoke funneled into trenches. Fire roared along stalks until whole fields were walls of flame. The ground, once flat and open, was now a twisting furnace where every direction brought death. Through it all, Megan stood firm. Her gloves were ruined, leather peeled back, fabric soaked with blood where torn palms pressed against the rifle's grip. The weapon barked again and again, steady, measured, precise. She moved along the line, dragging Marines into new positions, kicking rifles back into the hands of those dazed from shock, shoving ammo into trembling fingers. "Stay with me. You fire. You live. You hold. We all live," she roared, her voice breaking into smoke but still heard. The wounded groaned behind them. Stretchers moved low through the smoke, carried by pairs of Marines staggering under fire. A pilot screamed as a round tore past, but the bearers never slowed. They moved in jerks and lunges, stopping only when Megan's voice ordered covering fire, then sprinting again toward the shallow protection of the convoy staging point. Each stretcher was a gamble, seconds bought with blood, every crossing of open ground a dance with death. "Cover them," Megan shouted, snapping her rifle up. Her shots cracked into an enemy squad rushing from the ditch, dropping two before the third fell to another Marine's burst. Smoke swallowed the bodies. The stretcher team disappeared into haze. Marines bled into the dirt, refusing to drop rifles even as medics patched wounds with shaky hands. One man fired single-handed, his arm wrapped in a tourniquet, teeth clenched until his jaw bled. Another helmet split by shrapnel, staggered into line and shouldered his weapon as if nothing mattered except holding. Tracer arcs lit the farmland, red and green streaks stitching the smoke, curving lines of fire across the night. It looked almost unreal, a battlefield painted with light and shadow, death disguised as beauty. For every enemy cut down, more rose from the fire. The air was alive with shouts in foreign tongues, shrill cries rising from every ditch. Megan knelt at the rear guard, her rifle barking rhythm. Each pull of the trigger was precise, methodical, burning into memory the cost of every round. She felt the weight of command pressing heavier with each second. Duty was no longer abstract. It was flesh in her arms, weight on her shoulders, men dying because she told them to hold. She fired again, bloodied glove hand trembling but unyielding. Ash clung to her visor, streaks of soot turning her vision into blurred panes of gray and fire. Her braid lashed in the wind as mortars whistled again, the blasts closer, too close. Keep them moving, she shouted, glancing back at stretcher teams stumbling through black snow. You don't stop until they're clear. A Marine collapsed beside her, chest torn open by rifle fire. She dragged him into the ditch, pressed a bandage to the wound with one hand while still firing with the other. His lips moved, whispering something she couldn't hear through the roar. She leaned closer, caught only one word. Forward. Her throat tightened, but she didn't falter. She pressed the bandage harder, then handed him to a medic crawling forward. She rose, rifle steady, eyes burning. The Blackhawk burned higher behind them, its pyre lighting every face. It was no longer a beacon. It was a coffin, its flames a reminder that rescue meant carrying death alongside the living. Megan knew it, felt it in the marrow of her bones. Survival here was bought with sacrifice. Leadership meant being last, the anchor in the storm. Grenades. Now she ordered. Marines hurled them, the detonations rocking the ground, shaking fire into showers of sparks. The enemy staggered back, only for more to surge into the gap. Her Marines' voices were raw now. Shouts cracked into ragged edges. They were exhausted, bleeding, half blind, yet they refused to yield. Every man and woman in the line had accepted it. They might not leave, but those stretchers would. Ash drifted thicker, falling like funeral snow over helmets and rifles, coating bodies lying motionless in the dirt. Megan's gloves slipped on her rifle, sticky with blood, but she clenched harder. She couldn't let go. She wouldn't. Through the smoke, movement thickened. More enemy fighters poured from ditches, muzzle flashes strobing wild. The line bent hard. Marines pressed nearly back against the burning wreck. Megan shouted, voice hoarse, hold your line. And then, a sound split the night, a roar deeper than any rifle. The growl of turbines overhead. Cobra inbound. A Marine screamed, voice breaking with relief. The gunship streaked over the farmland, its engines tearing the sky. Its cannons thundered, ripping the ditch lines apart. Tracer streams shredding advancing fighters. Fire bloomed in the distance as rockets struck, the enemy scattering like ants under boiling water. The Marines cheered raggedly, voices raw but alive. Megan didn't cheer. She knew the truth. The Cobra's fury bought only minutes, not victory. The battlefield was still fire, still smoke, still hell. She tightened her rifle in bloody hands, eyes narrowing through ash. Minutes are all we need, she whispered to herself. But even as the Cobra roared again, more enemy reinforcements surged from the far side of the farmland. Shadows too many, muzzle flashes too close. The line was not saved. Not yet. And as the gunship banked for another run, Megan knew the storm was only pausing, not passing. The farmland was fire and thunder, every field lit by tracer arcs and exploding earth. Megan and her Marines pushed through the final ambush with the last of their strength, rifles cracking in short, desperate bursts. The Cobra gunship scythed the ditch lines with cannon fire, but enemy fighters still poured forward, shadows lunging from smoke and flame. "Keep moving," Megan shouted, voice raw, body aching. Her rifle spat, bolt clanging, brass clinking at her feet. She could feel the exhaustion in every man and woman around her, but still they moved, bloodied but unbroken. Step by grinding step toward the convoy waiting like a lifeline at the edge of the farmland. A mortar shell burst behind them, the shockwave throwing Marines to the dirt. Crops caught again, fire racing in jagged lines until the field itself was a wall of orange heat. The air pulsed with smoke. The horizon flickered with artillery flashes. Megan hauled one Marine upright by his plate carrier, shoved him forward. "Don't stop now. Not when they're counting on us." Ahead, the silhouettes of armored vehicles emerged through the haze. The convoy, their salvation, their last line of extraction. Marines staggered toward it, carrying stretchers on shoulders slick with sweat and blood. Wounded crew from the Blackhawk moaned and cried, rifles still clutched weakly in their hands even as medics rushed forward to seize them. "Get them in. Now. Now. Now." Megan barked. The first stretcher hit the ramp of an MRAP, medics swarming, pulling the pilot inside. Another stretcher followed, the crewman's eyes wide and dazed, his hand clutching at Megan's sleeve as he passed. She squeezed it once, firm, anchoring, then let him go. The battlefield quieted only in fragments. A lull in fire here, a scream there, the metallic clang of doors slamming shut. Megan turned, rifle raised, anchoring the rear guard. Shadows moved in the fire behind them. She fired, 3 rounds crisp, dropping figures too close to the perimeter. Her gloves were bloody, leather shredded nearly to threads, but her grip was iron. Ash rained down over them all, drifting soft and terrible like a funeral shroud. It clung to helmets, to rifles, to torn uniforms. It painted every survivor in gray, turning them into living statues carved by fire. Megan's braid was streaked with soot, whipping as the wind shifted, eyes fixed on the burning wreck behind them. The Blackhawk was gone. What remained was a pyre, fire consuming its skeleton, flames snapping high like banners. The broken rotor blades collapsed one by one, each fall another toll of the bell. The helicopter had become both beacon and tomb, its light a reminder of the men carried out and the Marines who would not. Her squad regrouped around her, faces ash-streaked, eyes hollow with fatigue. Some limped, others bled through bandages hastily tied. But all stood. No one had fled. No one had abandoned the fight. Megan swept her gaze across them, chest heaving, and saw it etched in every face grief, relief, and pride. They had honored the creed. They had not left anyone behind. But the price had been steep. A Marine leaned against the vehicle beside her, helmet cracked, rifle hanging from his sling. "We made it," he said, voice thin. "Jesus, we made it." Megan didn't answer. She was already scanning the field, already listening for the next push. The firefight had slowed, but it wasn't finished. Not yet. "Rearguard holds another 30 seconds," she ordered. Her voice was quiet now, but absolute. Nobody fires unless they're inside 100 meters. "Save it." The squad obeyed. They knelt, rifles steady, eyes fixed on the burning farmland. The fire-silhouetted enemy figures still moving in the distance, hesitant now, slowed by the Cobra overhead and the Marines' stubborn line. They looked like shadows against the inferno, flickering, disjointed, unreal. 30 seconds stretched into eternity. The ash fell thicker, clinging to Megan's visor, her shoulders, the barrel of her rifle. Her torn gloves slipped as she tightened her hold, blood drying into stiff patterns on the leather. She breathed steady, slow, a rhythm that fought against the chaos pressing in. Behind her, medics shouted, doors slammed, engines revved. The convoy was ready to roll, survivors secured, wounded stabilized. The mission, at its core, was accomplished. But Megan didn't move. She held, because leadership meant being the last. Leadership meant carrying the burden, watching the flames until no one else needed to. Finally, her radio crackled, All wounded secure. Convoy set. Sergeant, it's time. She exhaled once. Long. Slow. Her eyes lifted to the wreck, the burning pyre that had once been wings of steel. She saw it as it had been, alive, carrying brothers and sisters into the fight, and she saw it now, a grave marker lit by fire. She whispered into the smoke, words only the fire might hear. No one left behind. Then she turned. She moved last, rifle shouldered, braid trailing ash as she climbed into the rear guard vehicle. The door slammed shut, steel echoing. Engines roared, wheels chewed dirt, the convoy pulling away from the burning field. Through the narrow slit of armored glass, Megan cast one final glance back. Marines silhouetted against the blaze looked like shadows carved from endurance itself. The wreck raged brighter for a moment, flames snapping high, then collapsed inward, sparks scattering like stars. The battlefield was behind them now, but the weight remained. The silence inside the vehicle was heavy, not of fear but of exhaustion, grief, and loyalty, honored. The Marines sat slumped, rifles resting across knees, eyes closed but not asleep. Their bodies screamed, but their bond held stronger than fire. Megan sat among them, visor streaked, gloves shredded, rifle still in hand. Her presence anchored the silence. Her eyes, though shadowed with ash, stared forward into the dark road ahead. The mission was done. The price was paid. And tomorrow, another call would come. She whispered once more, barely audible, a vow carried only to herself and the Marines who had earned it with blood, no one left behind. Her gaze fixed forward, into the dark, into the next battle already waiting beyond the fire.